Roger Stone here for Colonial Metals Group. Colonial Metals Group helps Americans protect their future with the most trusted store of wealth in human history. That's actual physical gold and silver. If you're retiring or you're retired, go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/stone right now for your free Roger Stone Colonial Metals Group Retirement Protection Kit. Or call 800-747-6589. That's 800-747-6589. Call now to receive your free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver.
Judge Jeanine Pirro.
She's the outspoken host. Judge Jeanine Pirro is dominating the headlines right now.
This is the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Welcome, everyone, to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. I hope everybody's enjoying their morning so far. It's a beautiful day here in New York City, and as always, we're armed and ready to serve justice with all my great listeners here on the Red Apple Audio Network. A lot that happened this week in America. And we've got some great guests to talk about it today. We're going to have Ambassador David Friedman talk about what has gone on in Israel. Last week, of course, we found out that 6 hostages were executed as opposed to being released within hours of Israel being able to access them. And it points out to such hate on the part of Hamas and Hezbollah and all of those organizations that are more concerned not about any kind of peace deal or any kind of ceasefire, but more concerned about just destroying Israel, destroying the people of Israel. And today we're going to have former Ambassador David Friedman talk to us about what exactly has gone on that caused Joe Biden to basically say that Benjamin Netanyahu was not doing enough, when in truth, Benjamin Netanyahu agreed to all of the ceasefire agreements that the United States and the other countries had proposed. And literally, Blinken was very complimentary, Secretary of State Blinken, very complimentary of Netanyahu and the fact that he had worked toward these ceasefires. But no surprise. I mean, there is no rhyme or reason to any of this. But I think that the execution of the one American citizen along with the 5 other Jewish citizens is really a testament to the brutality and the bestiality of Hamas and its leaders. So we're going to be talking with former United States Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman. And we're also going to be talking to CEO and chairman of Colonial Metals Group, Paul Stone. You know, folks like you, I've always hesitated. You know, we hear a lot about gold and silver, and you hear all these commercials, and you know that, the dollar is definitely in trouble, and there's talk and rumors of it being replaced as a currency. And so I thought that instead of, just doing an ad or a commercial, we would have the CEO and chairman of Colonial Metals actually talk about silver and gold, what it is, why it came into being, how it came into being. And you're going to be shocked to hear the value of the dollar today is used to be worth 100 cents. Now it's worth 3 cents in terms of its buying power. So I wanted to kind of dig deep on this one. And so we brought in the chairman, Paul Stone, and we're going to be talking to him about how politics has played into the Federal Reserve and how it impacts your pockets. But before we get into the show, I want to talk about something that happened in a courtroom this week when Hunter Biden made a decision that he was going to go in on the day of trial, scheduled for the beginning of trial, and plead, he wanted to plead nolo contendere under an Alford plea. Now, let me tell you what an Alford plea is. Alford, A-L-F-O-R-D. It basically means that the defendant wants to go into court and say, I don't really want to plead guilty, but I agree that the facts as you have them will establish my guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But I don't want to say I'm guilty, but you can certainly sentence me and I will accept that punishment. The Alford plea is very rare. As DA in Westchester, I oversaw about 40,000 cases a year, and I can remember maybe one or two Alford pleas in all the time that I was DA. It is not something that we do regularly. It is very unusual to give the benefit of the doubt to a defendant. So on the day of trial, I want you to think about this, folks. It's a day of trial in a case that will be nationally televised and watched, not just by the legal eagles, but by the political eagles in a very hot political moment in history. And Hunter Biden's lawyer, Abby Lowell, comes in and he says, we want an Alford plea and we're ready to put an end to all of this. Meanwhile, the prosecutors from the Department of Justice are like, what are you talking about? We're ready to go. There's 120 potential jurors here. It's like gladiators, folks. I liken it to gladiators. So think about this. They're about, the crowd is there, the jury is there, the judge is there, all the parties are there with their lawyers. They're about to open the cages and the gladiators are about to join issue. And Abby Lowell, the attorney for Hunter Biden, says, now we want an Alford plea. And they're like, what? We didn't agree to an Alford plea. And Hunter Biden's lawyer, Abby Lowell, says, well, that's what we want. And the Department of Justice, who's been smeared all from the beginning of this investigation in 2018, says, you know what? We're not going to give you an Alford plea. And, there is no reason to give you an Alford plea. Now, remember, the Department of Justice got its hat handed to it when Judge Noriega refused to accept this ridiculous plea bargain deal of the century that the prosecutor Weiss had offered to Abby Lowell, basically saying you'll be protected from prosecution in perpetuity. You'll have immunity forever. And Judge Noriega said, oh, forget it. Have you ever done this before, Department of Justice? And the Department of Justice was embarrassed, and they said, no, we have never done this before. So the judge wouldn't accept that plea deal. So now the Department of Justice, that doesn't like surprises, is saying, we're not going to give you an Alford plea. We're going to trial. So the judge says, well, why don't you want to give him an Alford plea? Now, understand that in the federal system, apparently, judges are not to be involved in this Alford plea. It's between the DA or the U.S. attorney and the defendant. And the judge says, well, let me think about it overnight. And so Hunter Biden says, well, I'll just plead guilty to everything. Now, think about it, folks. Why would a defendant plead guilty to everything? I mean, at least if you go to trial, you have a shot at maybe, getting an acquittal on a couple of these things. So there are 3 felonies, 6 misdemeanors. And you'll recall the Department of Justice let 5 years pass and the statute of limitations pass on the heaviest years in terms of money making by Hunter Biden. And why would they do anything at this point that would make them look like they're in cahoots with Hunter Biden? Well, they don't want to give him the Alford plea. He pleads guilty to everything. And you have to say to yourself, why would you plead guilty to everything as opposed to at least going to trial? It's because his father's going to save him at the other end. And I don't care what Joe Biden has said. I don't care if he says it for the next month and a half. Sentencing on this tax case will be on December 16th. And you can rest assured that Joe Biden is either going to pardon his son or commute the sentence. That's why there was no risk for them to plead guilty to everything. And, the amazing part about it is I'm sure, based upon what the United States attorneys, with a special prosecutor, I should say, was dropping in terms of information to the press. We knew about Burisma. We knew about Russian oligarchs, Ukraine, money coming into the Bidens, or at least to Hunter, and then money going to the whole family through the LLCs. But we didn't hear much about a Romanian oligarch giving money to Hunter. And then all of a sudden, Weiss, the special counsel, in August starts dropping information that they're going to be, prosecuting Hunter and getting into the Romanian oligarch. Hunter cannot afford, nor can Joe Biden afford, who's in the last few weeks of his presidency, to have America hear how dirty the Bidens were in terms of their collecting money across the globe. And, for those Democrats out there who say, well, if it's so bad, why aren't they indicted? They're not indicted, folks, because Joe Biden is in charge of the Department of Justice. It's Joe Biden's Department of Justice that let the statute of limitations pass on the heaviest years. It's Joe Biden's Department of Justice that looked the other way and wouldn't even prosecute for Hunter's being a foreign agent, which is fundamental to his collecting of money, while his father was the vice president. So anyway, that is closed. That chapter is closed. We'll see what happens at the sentencing. But what I'm more interested in is what happens on January 20th, on the last day of Joe Biden's presidency. And when he gives his son a pardon because of a father's love for his son, you'll say, I think maybe the judge was right. Anyway, that's my opening statement here on the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. And never forget, that's the commitment we made on 9/11. Honor it by donating $11 a month to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation at t2t.org. That's T2T.org. And up next here on the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show, I will be speaking with the former United States ambassador to Israel, David Friedman. We're going to talk to him about what is there any hope at all for peace in the Middle East? What is happening with Netanyahu? Why is Israel, a lot of the country protesting? Why do they want a ceasefire when they should understand more than anyone that their very existence is in question? It's all coming up here on the Red Apple Audio Network.
Now, it's time for Protecting Your Investments, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Judge Jeanine.
Hi, I'm Jeanine Pirro, and this is Protecting Your Investment, sponsored by the Colonial Metals Group. Today, we're talking about the lunacy that's going on in the world, but the one thing that is pretty solid and maintains its strength is Colonial Metals.
It's the Judge Jeanine Show. This is the Jeanine Pirro Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Welcome back to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Joining us now is the former United States ambassador to Israel, David Friedman. He is also the author of a new book called One Jewish State, which we'll talk about in a minute. But please join me in welcoming David Friedman. Ambassador, thanks so much. I'm sure it's been a busy week for you, and I want to get right into what the latest news is and how incensed I really am at what has gone on in the past few days. And I think the whole world is incensed, although sometimes I think, Ambassador, the world is upside down. And I can't help but think that you probably think the same.
Oh, I do. I was incensed just like you, and thank you, Judge, for having me.
All right.
I assume you're referring to the comments by Biden that after Israel buried 6 of its finest people that, we all got to know over the course of a year, and we all prayed for, and we all met their families. And after they were, killed in cold blood just before they were about to be rescued. Yep. And Biden announces to the people of Israel in their hour of mourning that their elected leader hadn't done enough to free the hostages. What a insensitive, absolutely false, and just
it's incendiary. And it is, I mean, it really fired up a lot of people, but for him to accuse Netanyahu of not doing enough to get the hostage deal when, and tell me if I'm wrong, Netanyahu had agreed to every a ceasefire that was brokered by the United States and I don't know what other countries, Egypt, Qatar, I don't know who's involved. And Hamas did none of them. And then when he agrees to it, sometimes, I think he'd rather not. And then Biden comes out and blames him. And then as a result, you've got massive protests where hundreds of thousands of Israelis are, and dissenters accuse Prime Minister Netanyahu of failing to get a hostage deal and a nationwide strike in Israel. What a mess.
It's a mess. And look, the people in Israel have been in a deep trauma since October 7th, and they relived that trauma when these 6 hostages were murdered. And they're grieving, and they're obviously frustrated, as you would expect. People, it's a small country. Everybody is family there, and this is, people's family just got killed, so they're upset. And what does he do? He just makes up a story. I mean, there is no truth to that. Imagine just the asymmetry between Netanyahu, on the one hand, right? He's led Israel admirably democratically for 14, 15 years. And he's supposed to make a deal with a guy who authorized the murder of 1,200 people, the rape, the torture, the abuse, the kidnapping of 250 more, holding them underground in tunnels. And this is a negotiation. And somehow it's Netanyahu's fault that between the two of them, they haven't reached a deal.
Well, and I'll tell you the particular viciousness of it, as if the original 1,200 wasn't enough. But the idea that they were literally executed, they were shot in the back of the head. I'm sure they were on their knees when they were shot in the back of the head. And, it's very interesting that I think were they in Rafah, in a tunnel under Rafah?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And Rafah is where the United States for months has been telling Israel not to go. Don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. And yet Israel accommodated the movement of the Palestinians, as I understand it, out of Rafah so that they could engage militarily. What was the backstory there?
Well, look. This was Harris and Biden's. This was where they were going to show how much they cared about the people of Gaza, and they said don't go in there because. You remember Kamala Harris, said she studied the maps.
Yeah.
I could draw this map on a napkin. This goal. Right. That's how complicated it was. But they said you can't move the people. Israel said we can move the people, and Israel in fact did move the people.
Yes,
there were not inordinate casualties. They went in there. They actually rescued 5 hostages by going into Rafah, and most importantly, because Rafah is right on the border of Egypt, they discovered this massive smuggling operation. That was because they couldn't figure out where all these arms were coming from. And there are these massive tunnels between Gaza and Egypt. You could drive trucks through them. So they were able to shut down those smuggling routes, which was essential to defeating Hamas. So, all the efforts that were made by Harris and Biden were exactly the wrong decision, as they've made almost exactly the wrong decision everywhere else.
Well, your lips to God's ears, Ambassador David Friedman, and may we celebrate together. Thanks so much for joining us. All right. Thank you, Ambassador David Friedman. All right, folks, never forget, that's the promise that we made. Join the Tunnel to Towers Foundation on its mission to do good in honor of America's heroes. Donate $11 a month at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
This is the Jeanine Pirro Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Welcome back to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. Joining us now is the CEO and chairman of Colonial Metals Group, Paul Stone. Join me in welcoming Paul Stone. And everybody, I wanted to bring Paul on, and I mentioned this in the open, because we talk about gold and silver and metals, but a lot of people are afraid to take that step because they don't understand it. So we're going to do an in-depth interview, if it's okay with you, Paul Stone, and talk about kind of why we need to invest in things like gold and silver as the dollar is constantly losing its power. Let's start with For years, gold and metal were very valuable. And then the Federal Reserve came along and something happened to gold and metal. Talk to me. What happened? How did it change?
Well, from eons ago, gold backed our dollar. So in a way, paper was a better, easier way to carry gold, right? It folds. It doesn't weigh anything. So when the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, you now have an entity, and I liken it to if we hired a big committee to manage our weather. An economy, seasons affect the economy. People age, people move, people's ideas about things change. There's so much fluidity inside of an economy. Nothing stays put, right? When you want to engineer a bridge, everything's going to stay put that you design, the concrete pylons, the steel girders. So when you try to engineer a society or engineer an economy, it's probably not going to go well because it's hard for people to understand what their choice making affects down the road. 1913 was the last year, 1912 was the last year our dollar was worth 100 cents. Even though it was still backed by gold all the way up until 1971, the Federal Reserve and the committees at large that make decisions about our currency and our economy, what to push on this button, pull on that lever, they're killing the dollar's value ever since.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. All right, so when you say that when our dollar was worth 100 cents, okay, are you telling me that the dollar is not worth 100 cents now?
Yeah, in the year 2000. So we leave the gold standard. Gold has nothing to do with our money anymore. In 1971,
who decides to leave the gold standard?
The president. Roosevelt decided to make gold no longer money in 1933, and Nixon decided to make gold irrelevant to our money in 1971, a piece of paper.
But why would they do that?
Let's think. If we've got trillions of gallons of money behind us, and we want to flood our economy with that money. But we can't because there's this gold dam. There's a dam built of gold that holds all that money back, and we can't get at it. Wall Street, Washington, they're just drooling over how much financial firepower sits behind this dam. If you take the dam away, you can flood the world with American dollars. And imagine how wealthy everyone's going to get. Imagine how much fun that's going to be. So they removed the limit in 1971, and the world's been flooded with dollars ever since.
So Roosevelt and Nixon. Another reason to criticize Nixon. All right, so here we are. We're in a situation where the dollar's not worth 100 cents. It is 2024. What is my dollar worth?
In the year 2000, it's worth 56 cents. Today, it's worth 2.7 cents.
2.7 cents. My dollar is worth 2.7 cents.
You take a dollar with you today, 30, 40, 50 years back in time, you have 27, you have 2 cents, you have 3 pennies to spend.
Okay. Does that happen to everything? Is it like, something diminishes over where, I'm trying to justify that.
Here's a great visual. How many eggs does it take to make an omelet? 3 eggs, right?
Yeah.
The commodity never deteriorates. You're not going to be in a diner one morning going, gosh, eggs have just been suffering this deterioration over all these years. Now it takes 5 eggs to make an omelet. It's always going to be 3. So when you leave things unmessed around with, when gold, the commodity of gold, backs your money, gold's actually the money. It's the limiter, and the value of gold in a way doesn't deteriorate over time. But when you take paper and make it money, the value of that paper deteriorates over time, so it takes more of those cheapened dollars to fetch that commodity. The dollar is what's deteriorating.
Right.
So if I said, hey, you're worth, $1 million, and then you saw I started printing money, and you're like, hey, that $1 million isn't really $1 million anymore. Now I need $2 million. Great, yeah. I pay you $2 million. And then over time, you're like, hey, that $2 million, that's not even worth that anymore. I need $10 million. So if I want to hire you because you're incredible, now you're $10 million, or $100 million. You're $100 million. But the $100 million today is really just $1 million 50 years ago.
Okay, but everything from 50 years ago has depreciated.
Because they're printing money. And this goes to government choice making.
Aha.
And that's where people can start seeing this.
And here comes Paul Stone's passion.
Yeah.
Yeah, go.
Well, there's 350 million people that live here, and I would say at least 300 million are suffering and struggling, and they're confused, and they're angry, and they don't even know what to direct that at. So we're directing it at each other. And it's all because the government decided that it was going to finally take a uniform shot at solving all of our problems by themselves without engaging with the experts out on Main Street who know what living's all about and know how to build a bridge or a highway or a system or this and that. And we're the ones in some locale that have an issue, and the government just thinks that they can just spread some solution set across the entire country. Okay. Things in Albuquerque aren't the same as Bangor, Maine. Right. And so that's what I'm frustrated about, that they've done terrible things. They've destroyed the American family. They caused the need for the war on drugs. That war on drugs shouldn't have been fought in Colombia. It should have been fought here, helping people understand, oh, my God, you're stressed out. Your mind is suffering torture. How can we bring you relief? Oh, maybe moms could return to being moms. You forced moms into the workforce when dad's income wasn't enough to cover the cost to run the family's expenses. And then you took dad's job away and sent it overseas.
Interesting.
All due to Nixon's decision. So I'm upset because none of us asked to be here, and we certainly want to be here for 80 years enduring torture and hell and never be at peace and never be able to coast. It's all caused by the money printing keeps coming. The cost of things keeps getting more expensive, but your paycheck isn't growing.
Well, yeah, we know now that wages are definitely not keeping up with inflation. Yeah. We know that with the Inflation Reduction Act, which is counterintuitive in terms of the title alone, and the American Rescue Plan, they put trillions into America's hands.
The government just got out of the way. Life would take care of itself. We're brilliant people in this country. There are brilliant people in every country. We would work together from a more localized, issues and solution set. Let the towns help themselves. Let them go to their governors and go, hey, we need some help. Let the governors go to D.C. and say, here, there's what we need. Not this. To me, Washington does not communicate or is in anywhere near in touch with Americans or what's going on inside of America. They have their own ineptitude-driven agenda that just causes more and more turmoil. When they print money to help people, they're still going to cause things to get more expensive, so they'd have to print more money, give out more handouts to help people afford things. Here's a stat. By the year 2010, it would cost you almost $250,000 to bring a kid from newborn to 18 years old.
Yep.
Today it's $465,000.
Almost
and that's not static.
Yep.
It's going to go up every year. So by the time your kid is 18, you may have spent $750,000 to bring a human being to the age of 18.
People
Where is
can't
that normal?
afford that.
No, they can't. That's $25,000 a year right now. And guess what your age is when you're having kids, 20s and 30s?
Right.
So you're nowhere near peak earnings.
Right.
In your career.
Well,
it's ridiculous. It's all caused by the government. Just get out of the way, and we'll take care of stuff.
Okay,
we don't need to hear from you anymore.
Okay, so now they say that the Federal Reserve, and I don't understand the Federal Reserve, but they're saying that they're going to
pretend they manage your weather.
Huh? What did you say?
Pretend they manage your weather.
Okay, let's pretend they manage the weather. Now they say they're going to make the weather lower next month.
Yeah, they're going to make it warmer.
Yes.
Because if you lower interest rates, then it doesn't cost so much to borrow the dollar. Let's say we want to go build a building. We're going to go to the bank and get a loan. Currently, that's costing us a lot of money. It's a 500% increase in borrowing the dollar from when Obama was around, when it was zero interest rates by a quarter point. If you're at 5% today, that's a 500% cost increase to borrow the money to build our building. So maybe we just wait. So when they raise rates, it chills economic activity. You're bringing a freeze to things. What that really does is get people fired because now we can't consume as much, so the companies can't sell as much, so they don't need that workforce anymore, so they shed workforce. Raising interest rates by the Fed just gets people fired. Unemployment goes up, inflation goes down. What'd you do? You killed the demand for goods.
Well,
so the prices go back down.
Let's talk about Kamala Harris, okay?
Yeah.
Kamala Harris comes out, and by the way, she's the one who signed the vote that got the American Rescue Plan passed. She was the tie-breaking vote, and she may have been the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Reduction Act. But in addition to that, now she says she wants to create a federal price, she calls it, gauging law, which I never heard. Gouging.
Rent
law.
control.
What is
on goods
that?
And services.
That's price control.
Yeah, great. So, the rent's really affordable, but the building you live in dies. Because the landlord doesn't make enough money to keep up with costs to refresh the building and do repairs. So they don't care if you say, hey, my sink doesn't, my dishwasher doesn't work, my heat isn't working. Like, great. We don't make enough money off the building to come fix your heater.
Right.
All government intervention. Their ideas are terrible. They cause destruction. They cause it hard for people to enjoy living here in America.
Okay, Paul, we're going to go to a break for just a minute. We'll be right back, everyone, with Paul Stone, the CEO of Colonial Metals Group. You're going to want to hear what he's got to say.
This is the Judge Jeanine Show. This is the Jeanine Pirro Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Welcome back. We're back with Paul Stone, the CEO of Colonial Metals Group. Let me ask you this. Gold and silver. We're talking about Colonial Metals, gold and silver. A lot of people don't understand, are reluctant, are afraid to make the next step, who could agree with everything that you're saying. I mean, most people will be shocked that the dollar is worth 3 pennies today. But I don't think people will be shocked with the concept that the more the government throws money at us, the less things have value. The idea of price gauging or gouging,
rent control, and products,
which is price fixing. Mm-hmm. All it does is it causes people to hoard, and it causes the people who are creating products not to be responsible because there's no incentive for them.
Right.
So how does transitioning to gold and silver help me in that scenario?
If I hear the tornado siren blaring, don't I already need a bunker?
Yeah.
Okay, so gold and silver is a financial bunker, and that might sound, hokey, but it's a location for money. So if a storm is going to wreck everything of mine up above ground, I don't have control. I can't move my home, right? But I can move the valuables from my home into the bunker. I can't control the storm. The government's creating that. It is a storm, drawing on a resource temporarily. The storm goes away when the resource the government's drawing on goes away. So that's how you get your country back. We can still vote this November, but the idea of when the storm ends, it's because of the resource it's drawing on goes away. So if you think of gold and silver as a location for your money, you get to come back out of gold and silver with a phone call. The same phone call that helped you get into gold and silver, you make that other call that says, I'm ready to get out. So
But gold and silver keeps its value. In fact, gold and silver has increased sometimes tenfold.
Yeah.
What makes it increase?
More money chasing after it, and we can't increase the supply. So the mining operations.
Like right now, gold is very valuable.
Yeah, but it's probably a scant price level compared to what it can be if and when the world really chases after it all at once. So if you think about all the money in the world, isn't a ton of it in other assets? If people get really scared about or see the value and those things start to depreciate quickly, don't they leave those assets? Fear sets in. Why is there fear? Well, oh my God, I counted on this money being mine. Now it seems to be going down in value, so I'm going to preserve what I have. Mm-hmm. What are you going to take it to? While everything else is coming down, gold and silver is going up. So just picture an elephant falling into a bathtub. Your economy is falling into a bathtub. The bathtub's full of gold and silver. It's a lot smaller than the size of the elephant, so it splashes higher. But it's always your property. You're not renting space in something. There's no dependencies on it. Like if I need to get to my crypto, I need the phone lines to work. I need my iPhone to work. I need the government to let me have access to it. I need hackers to not have stolen it. There's a lot of dependencies that I don't know about or am in control of or get a forewarning about issues.
It's almost like a lot of locked doors before you can get through.
When I'm in gold and silver, it's at my elbow. It's in a safe at home, and people can say, well, I can't go shopping with it. You better hope there's not a day where you're shopping for things with gold and silver.
Right.
But if there is, you're damn happy you have it.
Well, it's not only that. I mean, we're talking about the economy right now and how I think we're veering toward Venezuela in terms of, everything they're doing with the dollar, the whole, even the semantics, the luxury. Read about Marx, read about communism, read about socialism. But it's not just that. I mean, the truth is, if the grid goes down, you really cannot access your money.
You're very broke.
You're going to need silver.
And here's the thing. Let's say you got 5 properties and you think you're rich and you got a couple $100 grand in the bank or something. But in the value of those properties might say you're worth, $16 million.
Yeah, right.
But that's not money.
No.
That's property.
Right.
You still have to hit the sell button, and then you have money.
But silver and gold are.
It's a store of wealth. It can convert back to money with a phone call. And, oh, my God, if it got really ugly, it would be money again. So
why are people reluctant? Why are they scared?
We have built-in forgetters as human beings, or mothers would not have a second child, right? So we kind of lose track of like, well, yeah, I've heard about the Constitution. It's some bunch of like old rules and regs or something. You know, it's inflexible. We need to be able to be more flexible. Gold and silver is inflexible, so people aren't used to it because they're used to the fluidity of just getting whatever they want from a touchscreen device. And that's where they kind of see the location of all their world. Right? I'm saying there's 4 places for your money. This is the perspective to try on. We don't have to suddenly go to, great investor school and make all the great decisions about how I'm going to grow my money. I think we're at the period of time where we have to look at protecting it. Let's grow up a little bit and understand trees grow towards the sun. They never reach it. Right? So if we kind of think, well, how high could everything go? This is just a layperson's take on things, not a financial advisor, right? So let's say the dollar's on the 100th floor. And asset values are on the ground floor. We bring the dollar down to 3 cents. We push asset values up to the 97th floor. 3 more floors to go, and then it comes down. Mm-hmm. So if I've relocated my savings, here's my options. Cash in a safe at home, they're killing cash. So even if it's in a safe in your home, they're destroying it from Washington.
Right.
I could drive it into real estate, but that $1 million home in a 3-penny dollar is a $30,000 house in a 100-penny dollar.
Yep.
Well, maybe I don't want it. But it's, whatever you think. People got to live somewhere. You could leave it in the financial world, or you could move it to the vault. 4 locations for your money. Just pretend you're reading it off the back of a cereal box and go, oh, my God, honey, I never thought of it that way. There's 4 places for our money. Mm-hmm. Only the internet kind of obfuscates our clarity on money still has to sit somewhere. Even if you think it's sitting in a database, it's still somewhere. So if you look at what lives on through turmoil, trouble, crisis, bankruptcy, destruction, precious metals can't be destroyed.
They can't be destroyed, and they can't take them from you.
No.
They can't devalue them. But I think in the end, Paul Stone, what people need to understand is this is not just a safe location for your assets, for your money. It's safe in the sense that people can't impact it negatively.
Right.
They can't take it away. They can't devalue it.
Right. When you call and sell your precious metals back to us, we don't report that anywhere. There's no exchange. It's not, there's a lot of negative sentiment on that, physical
or
gold and silver.
If it's worth more,
yeah,
which, it seems to go up all the time,
yeah,
then, that's income.
Right. So if gold is where you move your money when you're scared, or you start to see the fundamentals erode beneath your feet, gold's $300 an ounce in the year 2000. It's $2,500 today. It actually has grown higher. Mr. Kudlow pointed out to me that it's grown higher than the S&P.
Yes.
Over that time frame. Well, why is the year 2000 important? Not just because it's a big even number. It's because the baby boomers started retiring in 97. We don't have to get into that on this one. But just understand, if 60 million people start leaving your workforce at peak earnings and go onto the cost side of your economy, you have created the government allowed a black hole to end up in our economy that is sucking the life out of the economy into that. Government debt was $4 trillion in the year 2000. It's $35 trillion today. So in 24 years, the dollar's gone from 56 cents to 3. Debt's gone from $4 trillion to 35. And I would say we have more problems today than ever.
I would agree with you, Paul Stone, but I want to thank you for joining us. And if you need any information about Colonial Metals Group, just go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Pirro. colonialmetalsgroup.com/Pirro. Paul Stone, I want to thank you for today. We're going to do this again. This is just the first of many conversations that we will be having about gold and silver. And I'm going to assume that, my listener, like me, doesn't know a lot about this. But it's time, I think, we did a deep dive, because I've never felt less secure with the government and with my dollar. Paul Stone, Colonial Metals Group, thanks so much for joining us.